abundant panel this week. And by abundant panel, I mean there's 5 of us here, so you're going to get a lot of coverage and a lot of FaceTime from these guys to my left, starting with Deepak. How you doing here?
Good. Yep.
How's your week been?
It's been solid, I guess.
Solid? Okay.
Kind of crunch time.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. And we got a new guy to the show this week, and hopefully we're going to see him coming back every week. We got Nick way down at the end. How are you doing this week, Nick?
Pretty good, thank you.
You excited to be here?
Absolutely. I always love sports, and this is a great opportunity to share my love of sports with some other people.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start right in on the biggest topic of the week so far, and that has been the Olympics. As most of you probably know out there, the Olympics are wrapping up, and as of right now, they have finished, and the closing ceremonies will be there. Ends up being with Russia on top with 33 medals versus U.S. to 27, 28, I think is what it was. And then third place was some other team, Canada, Norway. But what did you guys think about these Olympics? Just kind of brief, yes, no, liked it, didn't like it, hated it. What did you guys think about the Olympics in Sochi?
I liked as much as I could see because the Olympics, it's always a time to just really experience the true magic of sports, bring the world together. And I mean, it was great to see that there was no threat that actually was carried out. And I mean, it's always a good time, always amusing, really great to see some of the sports that are just performed that you would never believe people could do.
Exactly, yeah. And Nick, what'd you get from this Olympics?
I've always been a huge fan of the Olympics. I know the athletes weren't too fond of these Olympics because of some of the hotel conditions. I always love the Winter Olympics. There's so many unique events, and I've always wondered, how do some of these athletes get into that sort of event?
Yes, and speaking of events, we're going to go to one of the most popular events that there is there, and actually the national sport of Russia, and that's going to be hockey. And coming from the United States, we know that it was kind of a disappointing week for U.S. hockey. The women end up losing in the gold medal match to Canada 3-2 in overtime, and the United States men end up losing to Canada as well, but that pushes them to the bronze medal game, and they end up losing that one. Deepak, 0-2 in the medal games right here for the U.S. hockey teams. What happened here? I mean, they were so hot. Both teams were so hot going into this, and then they just kind of faded off once it got to the end.
And I mean, that's basically it. You were hot going in, and then you just got tired. You got sloppy. The women, I mean, they played a strong tournament all throughout. Unfortunately, they lost that gold medal game to Canada, where we were up 2-0, and with Canada came back, bring it to 2-1 with less than a minute left in the third. They pulled their goalie. They have a one-man advantage, and they scored their second, bringing us to overtime, and where we ultimately lost there. The men, they got tired after a while, and you can't blame them. I mean, it's always a hard-fought tournament throughout the Olympics. Canada, I hate to say it, but they are the stronger team. Finland was definitely a surprise, though.
It definitely was. And Nick, I mean, coming into this, U.S., we knew that the U.S. teams were going to be pretty good, and we knew that the Canada teams were going to be good. But off of the Olympics a few years ago, we thought that the U.S. was going to be able to edge out Canada. What happened in these games for the United States?
Well, with Canada especially, on the men's side, you've got so many NHL stars. You've got Crosby, who's debatably one of the best players in the world. And it's not only him. They've got a very deep lineup. And though the U.S. also has a deep lineup, it just wasn't enough to overcome the depth of the Canadian lineup.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely, the heartbreaker of the week was definitely the women's team.
Yes.
Losing in overtime to Canada. I know you were talking about it a little bit before, Nick, of going to overtime, the power plays. Do you kind of want to recap what you saw happening? Was it Canada just taking advantage of the perfect opportunity, or was it the U.S. women's team kind of falling apart under pressure there?
Well, in the first couple minutes of the overtime period, the women's team, the American women's team, dominated the first probably 4 to 5 minutes of overtime. They gained a power play. They were unable to convert. They had several shots that the goalie from Canada was able to save. But as overtime went on, just mistakes started to be made. They lost out. Canada got a power play as well, and Canada just kept upping their opportunities and finally they scored to the glove side of the American keeper, which is how all 3 goals were scored, on her glove side.
Yeah, it's always rough to see something like that. And I know I unfortunately didn't get to watch the entirety of the women's game, but I did watch that overtime. And just watching it, you could definitely sense the shift there, that the U.S. women had the power, and then slowly as the power plays kind of went more towards Canada's side, it just, they ended up getting a lucky one in there. But that is it for the Olympics. So we're just going to do a quick recap. What do you guys take away from this? What was your favorite part of the Olympics this year?
For me, it actually comes from the amount of times we lost in the Olympics, and we come into these Olympics thinking that we have these big name guys, Shaun White, Shawnee Davis, that they're gonna medal, get gold, and they don't. But it was really the grace and defeat that I saw, and no matter what, the U.S. absolutely hung in there. There are times when if you didn't know the medal count, you were like, well, the U.S. is probably not doing really good if you're not getting notifications about this.
Yeah.
But no, they finished a strong second. Would have been nice to have first, but Russia, obviously, home field advantage.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Nick, what are you taking away from this? Favorite part, least favorite part? What's your impression of Sochi?
In every Winter Olympics, one of my favorite events is always bobsled. And you've got to enjoy the Jamaican bobsled team.
How'd they end up finishing this year?
I did not see what place they finished, but it's always...
It wasn't good, right?
It's never that great, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's so impressive that a country that never gets snow, never gets ice, still sends athletes to the Olympics to bobsled. And if you ever watch how they train in like little car-like things that they roll down a hill. And it's really impressive to think of the fact that they don't have the ability to train like some of these the American team and the Russian team, where they're training at top-rate facilities year-round, and yet they still send athletes to the Olympics and they still give it their best.
Yeah, they definitely do. Speaking of Jamaican bobsled teams, Cool Runnings, great movie, watch it. Lucky Egg and all, perfect. They did bring the Lucky Egg back this year. I don't know if you guys saw that. They brought the Lucky Egg back. Kind of a homage to the movie. I mean, he knew what he was doing with that, but it's definitely something good for Jamaica there. As for me, part I'm taking away from Sochi Olympics has just been the fact, it kind of builds off of Deepak, that our U.S.'s stars didn't perform as we hoped they would. Shaun White, Shawnee Davis, all that sort of stuff. But we still performed, and we still got a good amount of medals from some of the smaller guys that you wouldn't really expect. And I think that just kind of shows some of the perseverance and the amount of talent we have for U.S. Olympics.